everybody, a warm welcome to Mallorca, Richie Prior of course, and today I'm interviewing, well, you might recognise him by his voice more than maybe the face, Mr. Geoff Shreeves. Hey Geoff.
It's nice to be interviewed for a change, Rich.
I was going to say, this is a role reversal.
As opposed to being the interviewer. It's nice being on the other end.
Geoff, of course, works for Sky Sports. He's been there since the inception of Sky Sports way back in 1992. He first started, and he's the man that you'll hear on the touchline talking to the players, talking to the managers, both before and after the games, on all the big Sky Sports games. So let's go back to the start, Geoff. Let's go back to where this all started for you, because you were, in fact, the first person, or one of the first people, to be on Sky Sports. You were the man that was, you were the floor manager, right?
Well, I did it. I was there from 1991 as a freelancer. I went full time with them in 92. And the truth is, Rich, I'm the man who started football on Sky Television.
Oh yeah, that's an exclusive, is it?
Yeah, you can have that.
Yeah.
I'm the man who, when Rupert Murdoch decided to pump millions into English football, I had to give it the thumbs up before it could go ahead. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened.
Perhaps you explain that story a bit more, maybe.
Okay, you're right. I wasn't the floor manager. First game, August 1992, Brian Clough's Nottingham Forest against Graham Souness's Liverpool. Opening day of the season, I was the floor manager, and obviously with adverts, and we had to have the timings correct. Because I was the floor manager, I cued the referee. So the ref, like that, you can kick off now. So technically, I'm the man who started the football on Sky.
There you go. So, and how did you sort of progress to what you do now? How did that sort of come about? Listen, I know how lucky I've been in my career anyway. And I was really, really lucky in that I had three people in particular around me, and I would never have had the career I've had, if you can call it a career, without them. And they were a chap called Andy Melvin, who was our boss, and he was a producer, and he was previously a journalist, a written journalist, and had been a television director. He'd been a presenter. He used to present On the Ball from Scotland. So St. Greasy would throw up what's happening in Scotland over to Andy Melvin. He would be the presenter there. So he taught me about journalism, about asking questions, how to phrase questions, that sort of thing. So that was number one. Number two, next important was another Scotsman by the name of Andy Gray. Now Andy Gray is a force of nature, a remarkable. I just smile just thinking about Andy. A fantastic individual, a lover of life itself, so passionate about football, still to this day, in my opinion, and many others, still to this day, the best co-commentator there has ever been in football, bar none. And Andy taught me about football and how to behave around football clubs, how footballers would think about a scenario, he taught me football. And then the third person, who was equally important, is my pal Richard Keys, who, funnily enough, I saw very, very recently. And Richard taught me about broadcasting, about television, a lot about journalism as well. He and Andy kind of split that, him and Andy Melvin. And that's why I was so lucky, because I had these three around me, and I was like a sponge. I couldn't soak up enough knowledge quick enough. So. And we'd be looking at interviews, other people would be doing it, and you just progress slowly. So it's nowhere near good enough already to do live interviews on the day. But say we were doing the early rounds of the FA Cup, and it was somebody had to go and do a piece with the Halifax manager. I kept badgering, go on, let me do that. They never go. And I did it. Of course, the early stuff was pretty poor, and I wouldn't say that. Bringing bringing my work back and showing it to the three of them, I wouldn't say it was a school of hard knocks, because that wouldn't be fair on the school of hard knocks. It was brutal, absolutely. That is absolute whatever. That's rubbish. But said in a way that it's because they want you to be the best, because they cared about you. So it's fantastic. Different people go different routes. Obviously, a lot of people nowadays
They studied media, they studied journalism, etc. Mine was a far more hands-on. Mine was empiricism, and that for me was the best learning course that I could have done or could have gone through, and it just progressed from there.
And how's it changed? How sort of when you started in 1990s? What's changed about Sky? Obviously, you know the technology and everything else that's available to you as an interviewer or whatever, and the information that you're given is probably better than it was then, because obviously maybe you didn't have as much info as you've been given right now. So what has changed dramatically for you?
About 4 stone, I'd say.
That's the good life, Jim. That's an age thing. There you go.
That's definitely changed. So, funny enough, somebody sent me a picture the other day. Somebody sent me a picture the other day. They were working on some tapes in the office, and
Tapes. There you go. Now you're taking it back.
well, they were tapes, and let's have a look here. And he sent me a picture, and it was from that very first game. There you go.
That's you.
Now that's Teddy Sheringham. That's me.
Can you see that? Can you see that? So there you go. There you go. That's Geoff. Really? Is that you?
August 1992. Look at the Sky gear there as well.
Wow. Well, Teddy Sheringham doesn't look any different, does he?
No. Funny enough, I sent that picture to Ted when it's into it. I said, we've always been close. Teddy's funny, Teddy. Good guy. And it's changed. What's changed the most? I tell you what has changed the most for me is when you've got to remember we were a broadcasting revolution, and we weren't universally liked by any stretch of imagination. I mean, Sky as a company, not us as individuals, although that's a different subject. And a lot of stuff was not in the contract. So interviews with managers and players after the game, that was by grace and favour. They didn't have to.
Right, okay.
We would say, hey, we do a quick word for us. No. Nah. Not all the time, but it wasn't written into the contract.
But would they do that maybe because you have a friendship with them? They'd probably more do it for you.
There were certain people that would do certain things, like in any business, who were more helpful than others. The majority, just did what was required, no more and no less, which was fine, and a few were definitely not interested in helping. However, it was a great time to build relationships, forge friendships, many of which exist to this day. So it was a very, very different time. Now, when we're doing a game, you've got the international television there. They'll do 6 or 7 interviews post-match, so will the players. It's a different ball game, but there's no reason why it should stay the same. There's no industry that's going to stand still because I've been there the fat end of 30 years.
And to be honest with you, when you look at it now, you probably forget what it was like way back in the 90s, how different it was. You probably sort of seem to think, oh, it was always been like this, but it hasn't. Obviously, it's changed over the years. So, Super Sunday, you're getting up in the mornings doing Super Sunday. What is a day in the life of
for any game, it actually starts. I've always been a believer in doing your homework at least the day before, because then it's in your mind, and then you're just topping up the next day. Any day for me, wherever I am in the world, starts with reading the sports section of 5 or 6 newspapers every day. Now online, but in the old days I used to come back from newsagents with a pile of papers that big. Read all the papers, see what's going on. Always top up your knowledge. Always be in touch. Then, of course, you've got the websites to go to as well now, who often offer things every bit as good. Sometimes, it's certainly the equal of the newspapers. I'll have read my stat pack the day before, which tells me all the information about the players. And what I do is I write a sheet, and I'll have a note, a pertinent note on each. So I've got something on every single player that's in the back of my mind. A player might be about to make his 200th appearance. He might be about to make his 50th goal, or score his 50th goal for the club, and he hadn't done previously. So, and it'll be, what's the story? What's going on? Who do we think's in the team? who might not be in, why they're not. Martin gave me a really good tip. He's given me much over the years. In fact, that's unfair when I'm mentioned Richard and Andy. I should have mentioned Martin as well. No, I can't find one. And he gave me a tip years and years ago. When you're trying to get your head around a game, you can get lost in stats. You can get hung up on media quotes. What Martin always says is, smell the tie, smell the fixture, get a feeling for what this game. What is this game? Is it revenge for last season? Is it one team in desperate trouble who win would be massive, or a loss? Then there's going to be some real questions asked here. Smell the tie, and that was a great tip.
When you arrive at the ground, you're given. Am I right in saying you're given a load of information by? You've got some really good stats people at Sky that give you a load of information.
Yeah, which that's what I was referring to. I'll have read that the day before, so I'll have all that. Arrive at the ground, check in. Although at the moment you can't because of COVID, but normally I'll go on the trucks.
Right.
Speak to the producer, speak to the director, see what's on their mind. They and the producers, directors, they'll have some thoughts, some often things that can be helpful. Normally do a news cross into sports news, so it could be with whoever is the co-commentator on the day. It could be Alan Smith, it could be Gary Neville, somebody of that ilk. So we do a live cross, and then we'll do one for Sky News normally, and then wait about 2 hours before the game. A player off the bus, both teams, do a quick word with him, 3 questions on the game.
You don't know which player that is, by the way. That's not predetermined, is it?
It can vary. Sometimes that we'll know on the Friday. Sometimes you'll know when someone's walking towards you.
Right.
So you'll be fairly well briefed.
Yeah.
And then you get the teams, hour and a quarter before kick-off, embargoed until an hour, then an hour before, then the public knowledge. And then you get the managers. You do both managers. You can ask them about the lineup, who's in, who's out, they're thinking, how's this going to go, all that stuff. And after that, on you go.
And are they, before the game, are the managers? I know after the game is sometimes a little bit sticky because depending on if they've won or they're lost. But before the game, are they more open because they don't want to obviously reveal tactics or anything like that, or why they picked the team they've picked? But they don't go too deep or not.
They can vary. Some are more open. Some are more tactical. They honestly, Rich, they vary. But they know they've got to do it. I'd say now, 100% of them do it with good grace. They know as well. They know as well. If they've left out a big name, they know what the first question is going to be about that. So in the last however long, I mean, Mikel Arteta, he's a great poker player because he's like that, no movement at all, no inflection. But he knows at some point the Ozil question is coming. When he first arrived, he would explain either it's his back injury and it's not quite for. But now you've got to ask it just in case something has happened. He knows you've got to ask it, but you're all kind of fairly weary of it. You're just ticking a box.
Yeah. Well, you're asking the questions that us as viewers want to know the answers to, right?
Yep, 100%. That's my job, is to ask the questions that you think the viewers want. So, could I be more detailed, more tactical, more technical? Although I think in general, football fans' knowledge is tremendous and has gone up and up and up and up. The detail from when I was a kid growing up, what fans know now, and their thirst for technical and tactical knowledge has increased enormously. That's not everybody, so you don't want to overcomplicate it. And then at the same time, you don't want it to be just trotting out the norm. So it's a balance. Like any interview, it's a balance.
Yeah, and so then when you talk to the managers afterwards, then you are
in the firing line.
Well, I mean, listen, it's fairly recent, but you had a sort of, I wouldn't say a falling out, but Klopp obviously wasn't that forthcoming when you interviewed him after the Man City defeat.
Yeah, but again, you have to look at the circumstances. The recently crowned champions have gone to the former champions, and no matter what anybody says, there was something in that game in terms of laying something down for next season. So it's always those occasions. They always make me laugh. It's like the Community Shield. All the game, you say to it, players and managers, is this about laying down a marker for the season? No, just to get them. So what doesn't make any difference. Post match, losing team doesn't make any difference. Just winning team, really important to know. It's laying down a marker for the season.
Yeah.
So there's no question there was something on that game other than 3 points, which didn't matter because they were already champions.
Mm-hmm.
And he was furious that his team had got beat. So whatever I had said to him was going to upset him. And of course, I look back at the interview. I had lots of people contact me, lots of people get into. But I've got no problem with Jurgen's demeanour there. I can handle that. It was only because if you take the joy of the majority of the interviews, the celebrations, and Jurgen's given some great moments himself. If you take all of that, you're going to get that every now and again. You just have to suck it up. It's fine.
You had a similar sort of falling out with Alex Ferguson as well, didn't you?
I'd say more than one. No, listen. Bear in mind, I interviewed Sir Alex in his pomp at Manchester United, probably more than anybody else, purely because of the amount of games we did.
Yeah.
If I was to guesstimate, I must have interviewed him. Let's say, if you include midweeks, let's just say I interviewed him 200 times or 250. I've got no idea what the number is, Rich, across that many years. Say it was 250. We've probably had words on less than 5 occasions. So you've got to apply perspective here.
Yeah.
Sometimes he was out of order. Sometimes I was out of order. I got it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But always professional. I loved Fergie. I absolutely loved him. He was. Let's talk about in the past. I really, really like him. He was feisty. He gave great interviews. He was a great interviewee. Always said good things, said interesting things, and he used us. He used us, the media, to get a message, whether it be to his players, to opponents, to the book, whoever. Very, very, very.
Well, it was the famous Keegan thing, wasn't it, years ago? That
I was in the room. I was in the room when Richard used all his skill as a broadcaster to get to Kevin. He wasn't looking to upset him, but Richard just sensed there was something there, and the producer at the time said, "Richard, go, let him go," and Richard just kept going, and we got that iconic piece of television.
Yeah.
And I was stood there in the room. The funny thing about that is, first of all, it nearly didn't happen, the interview, because at Ellen Road, it was out the stadium. You actually had to go outside across this little room where it was, and I'd gone in there to check everything was all okay in there, ready to do the interview down the line. And one of the riggers, an old boy, well, shall we say, he'd obviously had something for lunch that upset his stomach. And I nearly threw up when I went in there. There's no way you could have asked somebody to come in there to do an interview. So I ran back in to see Sean, the kit man at Leeds. I said, "If you got the air freshener?" He said, "Air freshener?" He said, "What do you think this is? House and home?" I said, he said, he gave me like a deodorant, one of the players' deodorants that had a nice smell. So I ran back, sprayed it all, and it was all right. It was, as you say, it was an iconic moment.
Definitely. Now, you said to me before that the best and the worst interviewers, probably the best interviewers are the winning managers, and the worst interviewers are the losing managers. There's not really a...
No, they're not the best interviews, I would say. Normally, if you say to me which are the easiest and which are the hardest, for obvious reasons, it's harder interviewing a losing manager.
Mm-hmm.
Funnily enough, Sir Alex Ferguson was often a better interviewee in defeat than in victory. Because he didn't want... I always felt that he didn't want his players getting carried away with it. I always felt that he wanted to keep their feet on the ground. You know, like win 2 or 3-0 and then get beat. And we can do better there. This would be this or that would be that. He was great interviewing. But there's so many down the years. It'd be unfair just to single him out. Kevin Keegan was brilliant because he wore his heart on his sleeve. Young Jose. He had a spell at Manchester United where I think by his own admission he wasn't great, but he's got his bounce back now. Tottenham he's back to his normal self. There's been so many great characters down the years to interview. They've been fun. Loads of fun.
Now, one thing I wanted to touch on, that when you interview the players, you interview the managers, you don't get to interview referees. And I think, me as a viewer would probably like to see a referee be interviewed maybe after the game.
The Premier League and the refs, they don't allow them to be interviewed. So first and foremost, we're not allowed to. That's number one. Also, normally, if you talk, you're not going to go and interview a referee and say, "You had a good game today. It's nice and tidy. You managed to well." I don't think there's an appetite for it from people. If he's made a mistake, that's really the only report. You're going to challenge a decision he's made. That's the only real reason to speak to the ref. So that's why now some channels have a ref as part of their presentation team.
But don't you feel that sometimes those refs are really like, they don't really tell you anything that you didn't already know, if that makes sense? They seem to be always on the ref side, if that makes sense. They never seem to be controversial.
Yeah, no, it's going to be the union, isn't it? You know that. But some of them will disagree. Some of them will. I think they've got better. Some will say things. But to be honest with Rich, we are not inundated with requests to interview referees.
But so moving on from that, or by the side of that, then what about VAR? Because obviously that's come in, and you're very close on the touchline, to everything that's going on, and seeing things and seeing reactions of the bench and everything else. What's VAR brought to football, you think?
Confusion?
Oh, well, yeah.
I don't like it. I'm not a fan. Not a fan. I'm not a Luddite. I love goal line technology because it's clear and it's concise. Although Sheffield United would probably disagree with that. I could happily live with the imperfections that the game had. All we've done is transfer one set of opinions, which is the ref on the pitch, to another person with another set of opinions elsewhere. I'm not a fan at all. Not at all.
And we've sort of talked about the fact that the game is about opinions, and what basically with VAR is really another opinion from another person in a studio, really, at the end of the day. And you used to tell me you used to get asked by managers on the sideline before VAR came in. You used to have a video, like a
monitor.
screen,
I had a monitor like this,
yeah.
So I could watch the match, so I could see. So if post match I've got to do an interview, I know what's happened in the incident, and the managers would maybe see something in their dressing room. They might be, but they weren't allowed to have monitors on the bench. They're allowed now.
They are.
Yeah. So that's different. So they'd often turn and say, penalty been given against them. Look across. Was that pen? And I'd say yeah or no. But then, of course, it's an opinion. So if Sir Alex Ferguson, they can see the penalty. He said, never a pen, never a pen. And I'll give him and say, I'm sorry, Sir Alex, it was. Off he goes. Comes out half time. You lying so-and-so, it was never a penalty. Well, you asked me, I thought it was. What do you mean to do? And you can't say I didn't see it, because I know you got a monitor. So you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't.
Right. So in that way, I think we've talked also before about referees asking you as they've... Listen, I think you've got a respect for referees. You like the referees. You know referees probably better than anybody.
I know how much referees care. I know how they in many ways it's a completely different job, but they're like footballers. When they get it right, they celebrate and on the highest of highs. They come off the pitch at half time often. They look at me or Brett Smart, who I work with, the floor manager, and they'll just look as if to say, did I get that right? It'd be a big call. If you say spot on, they're like, yes, it means lots to them. And if they say to get that right, you go, oh, they're gutted. They're gutted. It's like a goalie fumbling the ball. They're absolutely gutted. They care. They really do get. They try and get it right the whole time. So I have a huge amount of respect for them and sympathy.
And if you had the choice now, you'd bin VAR, would you?
I would, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see what it's added to the game. I mean, the way people talk about VAR, it's as though in every single game there was an offside that was wrong. There was a handball. It wasn't. We're now looking for it. And don't get me started on this. I know they're going to change it. If the ball touches the arm of an attacker during the build-up, I mean, he can be lying on the floor, spark out cold, touches his arm, somebody puts in there, it's no goal. How that lunacy became law, I have no idea. Just rubbish, just absolute rubbish.
And then looking at sort of toes across the line and of offsides and stuff like that, it just it sort of, well, it slows the game down, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes it joyless. Celebrating a goal, all that stuff. I just don't, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. In this quest, this quest for total justice and 100% accurate, you're not going to get there.
Yeah.
You're not going to get there. Why not just accept the game for all its imperfections? But I would also say, and I don't know why, it works really well in rugby. I've got no problem with it in rugby. But it's more of a stop-start game.
Yeah, but also maybe in rugby that there is more. What do I say? Officials are liked more, if that makes sense. There's more of a
respect.
Respect is the right word, yes, for officials in rugby. And you're always brought up through rugby. I mean, listen, I played football from a young age, and really, to be honest with you, we started to row with refs at quite a young age. Whether it was right or wrong is it's a matter of opinion. But it was always brought up. But you always used to call the referee sir.
It's not a matter of opinion. It's wrong.
Yeah, well, no, I agree. It's wrong.
It's not a matter of opinion.
But a referee in rugby was always called sir, and still is called sir. Whether you're 35 or you're 5, they're always called sir.
And look how they control the game. Literally, if you start that to a rugby ref, he'll look at you incredulously, and he'll say, "If I see your face once more in this game, you'll be off."
There's a Welsh referee whose name escapes me, who is one of the best referees I've ever seen. Nigel Owens.
Brilliant.
That's it. One of the best referees. I agree.
Openly gay. He tells a great story.
Yeah.
He said he was watching the game somewhere because he's a rugby fan as well, and he was watching the game, and the referee had given a decision which clearly the supporter didn't like. And unlike a rugby sport, this guy went, "You referees are all bent, all bent." He sat down and he realised he's transgressed in front of Nigel Owens. He said, "Not you, Nigel, not you, Nigel." And Nigel Owens said, "Only off the pitch." Lovely, lovely story.
Yeah.
I heard his. I heard a podcast with him, I heard his Desert Island Discs. Makes the hairs stand on the back of my neck now. Brought up, and they're all hymns, all Welsh hymns, lovely hymns, and coming out, and he was so upset. I think he certainly. He thought about taking his own life. I think he may have tried. I apologise to him if I got this incorrect. But then, and how subsequently what rugby has given him and the life he's had, brilliant. Listen, it will be borderline as good as this.
Well, I wanted to touch on that slightly, what you've just talked about there, because I mean, you're a very jovial person. We see each other maybe once a year, twice a year, when we talk to each other, maybe on a text or something. And something I would never ever have put you with is mental health.
Mm-hmm. What happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. I went into hospital for a minor operation, which it was very minor, it was like a skin tag removal in a fairly intimate part. Put it this way, most people say I talk out of it anyway. Okay. So anyway, and it was a nothing, a tiny operation, but I got infected. And I got an abscess, where an abscess is a really horrible thing to have. And for an abscess, you basically got to, you've got to keep it clean and dry. So it was a horrible operation to have it removed. 8-week recovery, dreadful, really, really dreadful. Just about getting over it, and I had a recurrence. Same operation, same recovery. And when I went in the second time, the doctor said to me, "You better get ready. You're going to go into depression." I said, "What?" He said, "You'll get depression." I said, "I'm very, like you said, upbeat guy, pretty jovial, happy-go-lucky. I'm very grateful, got a very good life." He said, "Your body will not be able to handle this much." I said, "You're talking nonsense." Sure enough, and in me, depression can manifest itself in many different ways. In me, it was chronic fatigue. I could not get going. I couldn't, and at the time, I didn't have the confidence to tell my employers, because you're always, like any industry, you want to be at the forefront of your industry. And because my job, a lot of it is about opinions, and also, let's be honest,
people sometimes are kind enough to say you ask good questions. I've asked plenty of poor ones as well. I'm well aware of that. I know.
Yeah.
But I just thought, if they think I've got some sort of mental incapacity, down the line, I guarantee I'll do a poor interview. Guaranteed, purely on the amount that I do. They might look at me and think, he's not the same. It's not the same as he was. So I kept a lot of it from them. They knew I was ill. They were good. They were fine. But let's say I was doing a game at Manchester United. I'd leave my home in Hertfordshire, drive for about 40 minutes, stop at the service station, black coffee, get to Birmingham, pull over, keep in the car for a couple of hours, get to Manchester, straight to the hotel, sleep for an hour and a half, get myself for the game, Mars bars, black coffee, sugar, Red Bull, stay overnight, and then limp home the next day. But it got worse and worse, and the bottom line, the nadir, that when I hit rock bottom, I was out in LA, and I was doing, Steven Gerrard was with LA Galaxy, and I was interviewing him live in the dressing room. And I'm holding the mic like this, and I'm questioning him, and I couldn't take on board what he was saying. I couldn't hear. There wasn't a volume thing. He's speaking like that. I had no idea. I thought, I've got to get help here. This isn't right. And I tried various routes, doing all sorts of medical tests and stuff. Couldn't work out what was wrong. Why I couldn't put one foot in front of the other. And I'd gone to Fulham. Alan Coventry was at Fulham at the time, and they had fantastic medical facilities there, which Jean Ticana put in. So he said, come down, we'll test you on everything, and do all sorts of tests. And I've gone for a coffee with my friend, the press officer there, Sarah Brooks, sat there, and the current manager, Scotty Park, was there. He came over to John, sitting having a chat, and he was listening to me explain all this to Sarah. He said, and at the time I didn't know Scott well, knew him, but not really well. He said, do you mind if I say something? I said, no, sure. He said, I think you need to see a psychiatrist. You are? He said, I think you need to. I said, what makes you think that? He said, when I was at Newcastle, he said, I was earning, I think it was the best contract of my career. He said, I had a lovely wife, 4 kids, everything I could have wanted in life. He said, I started crying every day. Every day I'd break down in tears. And he said, I couldn't work out what was wrong. He said, I went to see a psychiatrist. And he'd broken his leg either that season or the season before. And subconsciously, he was frightened of it happening again and it all being taken away from him. He didn't know that, and he couldn't work it out. I said, wow. I said, how's that? He said, I've seen the same guy. And that was like 8 years ago or something, like a long time. He said, I've seen him every 2 months. He said, the best thing I've ever done in my life. And then I spoke to a few friends, and another friend of mine, my best friend, exactly the same character as me. He said, I saw a psychiatrist when I got divorced. He said, brilliant. So I went to see somebody, and then again, thankful for my connections, Matt Lawton, writer at the Times, cycling correspondent, and Steven Gerrard as well. They set me up with Dr. Steve Peters, who wrote The Chimp Paradox, works with a lot of top sports teams. So you go like this. So obviously in my job, I fancy myself as a bit of a psychologist anyway, and I do look at body language and that sort of thing. So he comes to see me in this hotel, and I'm sat there like that. And he walks in. I said, look, Dr. Peters, I said, I know you'll observe the way I'm sat up. The truth is, I've not been in the gym for about 8 months. I've put on a fair bit of timber, and the shirt is pulling a little. He looked at me and went, defensive pose, bad start. Justification, even worse. I was like that. He was like, zing, zing. He said to me, he said, you're a football interviewer, aren't you? I said, yeah. He said, if you went to interview a footballer today who'd just broken his leg, what sort of questions would you ask him? I said, well, how bad's the break? What they're saying? How long till the cast is off? How long till you're back? You know, how you can deal with that sort of thing. Yeah. He said, would you ask him why he's not in the team and scoring goals? I said, well, of course not. He said, right. He said, so you've had 3 major assaults on your body, and you're asking me why you don't feel right? I know, yeah. Since you put it like that. He said, I can tell you why you're not well. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, why? He said, because you're not well. It was as simple as that. Acceptance. And ever since then, I am evangelical
about mental health issues, being understanding, talking about it. The show I host or have hosted the debate.
Yeah.
We've had people on. We've talked about it, and we've got the suicide rates amongst men in the UK are absolutely frightening. Absolutely frightening. I think it's the biggest killer of men under the age of 40 in the UK, above certain illnesses, which is just horrific, and it just shows it's still a taboo subject. It's still people hide it. I was really impressed by Prince William's campaign, the Heads Up charity, and it's all right not to be all right, and I would encourage anybody to talk about it, to get help, whatever it is, because it builds up, it's on your chest, and it manifests itself in some terrible ways, and people end up in really dark places, and it's not necessary. But, if you hurt your foot, you either rest it, get it bandaged up, you treat it. Something's bothering you, you carry it around, you don't do anything about it. It's madness. You've got to treat the mind like any other muscle.
But you've obviously learned from that, because before you probably would have gone, oh yeah, don't worry,
I will never ever be able to say, and I can't say because I was so unwell, that I'm glad what happened. I can't say that, but I'm not sorry that it did. It taught me an awful lot.
Yeah,
taught me an awful lot about the fragility of life. Probably taught me some humility, although I'd like to think, despite the bravado and the noise, I'm not too bad on that score anyway. Taught me an awful lot, and more, I think, more understanding and hopefully more caring about people, which is, I'm not setting myself up to be some sort of painter and saint here. I can be horrible as well. I know that, like most people. But when you've experienced it, when you can't put one foot in front of the other. My wife Di was brilliant, unbelievable. First of all, from the physical side, in terms of after the operation, she created virtually a field hospital at home. And for months and months, she said, right, we're doing so and so to get the children. We're all going out for the day. I've managed to get myself dressed. About to go out the front door, she'd look at me. I'd go, kids, come and go. Dad's standing here, he needs a rest in it. Bang, bang, bang. And it's the support that other people give you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for opening up about that. That's fantastic. And hopefully, if there are anybody else out there that's in the similar situation,
get help. Get help.
Yeah.
Talk to someone.
I think we're going to wrap it up. This has been fascinating for me, and I watch you obviously every game that you're doing. It's interesting to know what's going on behind the scenes. To be honest with you, you very kindly once invited us back behind the scenes at Sky once a few years ago, which was for me was an amazing thing. So I appreciate that. Finally, you're here in Mallorca. You love Mallorca, don't you?
Yeah. It was. I came here as a kid, like many people, but it was Richie Keys who really introduced me and my wife to the island. We owned a place here for about 8 or 9 years, and we had to sell it because it was a 2-bedroom apartment. We got 3 kids, and a boy and 2 girls. So we've been renting at various times, but I'd like to think unfortunately I'm closer to the final whistle than the first half in my career. So I'll carry on as long as I can because I still enjoy it. I still get the same buzz from it as I've always done. But I love this island, and I also about this island, if you want to come here for a fortnight and you want to spend 500 quid, you can. If you want to come here for a fortnight and spend 500 grand, you can. It caters for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know what it's a strange time now.
Yeah, it's been tough.
The beaches are packed, but they're packed full of Spanish as opposed to holiday makers.
It's true.
The simplicity, you see so many little families, they've got a couple of little fold-up chairs, a freezer box with the food in it, all down the beach. Don't need anything else. Happy as Larry, or whatever the Spanish. What would Larry be in Spanish?
When you were saying it, I'm thinking he's going to ask me that, and I wouldn't know actually.
Okay. Happy
as one.
Yeah, happy as one.
There you go.
Happy as one can be.
Yeah, it's very good.
So yeah, I just think that I love the mountains here, as well as all the glitzy stuff, the high end restaurants.
as equally fun are the little places,
Yeah.
family-owned places.
Yeah, I agree.
So no, it is a magical island where hopefully we will be here, more and more. Only come to see you, bud.
Thank you. Good to
My
see you, mate.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.